get some analysis from Ben Aris, who is a long-time Russia reporter and editor-in-chief of BNA IntelliNews, and he joins us now live from Berlin. Welcome to the programme. So we're waiting for the court's decision. What do you expect to happen?
I think it's a given. They're going to throw the book at him and put him back in jail. There's no reason not to, in so much as the international reaction has already lambasted this whole arrest and called it unfair. The European Court for Human Rights has already ruled that this case is politically motivated and that the state is persecuting him. And given the amount of damage the Kremlin's already taken from outside, there's no reason why they shouldn't take what is now the leading pain in the ass, the thorn in their side, to take him out of play and put him into jail for at least 2.6 years, as your reporter was saying. And there's a second case in the works, another fraud case, which carries a 10-year sentence, which will probably follow up afterwards. And I remind you, the other political dissident that was jailed, Hodorkovsky, a former businessman, he ended up spending 10 years in jail. It's the same problem in so much as he was active in Russia interfering with politics, and so the Kremlin just locked him up and left him there. So
Ben, just to be clear, Navalny could face 12 and a half years in prison?
12 and a half years. He could, I mean, today the court is going to decide on the suspended sentence, and the chances are, given that he's already done a year under house arrest, that gets counted out of the total sentence. So on the table for today is a gesture towards the rule of law and leniency on the Kremlin's part. But there's a second case which hasn't come to a conclusion. Charges haven't been brought yet, but it's in the works. And the threat there is for another 10 years to be added to this case further down the line. And if they do put him into jail for any length of time, then the chances are that they're going to put him into jail for a long time, simply as a warning to other political activists that you're going to give up a decade of your life if you continue to pursue this line. And
do you think Vladimir Putin thinks that this is a problem that will go away? Because we've seen his supporters there are masses and masses. We've seen that over the past 2 weekends.
Yeah, this has been building for a while. I mean, what Navalny's done is not necessarily start something new, that he's tapped into the general resentment, the general dissatisfaction with the government. Their real incomes have been declining for 6 years, the quality of life, after a rapid catch-up in the noughties in the first term, Putin's first term, where Russia was transformed from an economic basket case under Yeltsin into a relatively prosperous and normal country. But that stopped. That stopped in about 2012, when the whole problems with the West began, where Putin diverted all the resources into modernizing the army, and he started the clash with the West, which came to a head with the annexation of Crimea in 2014. And Putin's been running an austerity budget ever since, because he's trying to save as much money in order to build up these massive financial resources that Russia has. And instead of spending that $600 billion cash pile, it's the fourth largest reserve in the world, instead of spending that on making Russia a better place, he's keeping that money in reserve because he sees it as a strategic weapon in his fight with America. And the people have had enough. And Navalny's come along and he's tapped into that. And it's not so much it's a pro-Navalny protest we're seeing here. It's what political commentator Galeotti called the coalition of the fed up. People are just fed up with the arbitrary use of the legal system, with the declining standards of living, albeit they decline slowly. And so when Navalny called them to the streets, they came willingly in a show of, we've had enough, Putin. We want some change. We want our lives to get better. We want a future for our children. And these are the comments you hear. And the calls for Navalny must be freed. He's an example. He's an example of everything that's wrong with the system, as opposed to a political leader in his own right.
Ben Aris, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much indeed for your perspective and your time.